Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America, the day before Independence Day. I might share with you the letter we're going to be sending out. It's the equivalent of an article we're going to be sending out later today. I might share that with you if I have a moment. But I find it ironic, folks, ironic, that on the day before Independence Day, 2024, 248th anniversary of our nation's existence, we've got some people in our country going absolutely bonkers. I don't know any way other way to say it. They are losing their minds. And it's not over the fitness of Joe Biden for office, although at last some of the mainstream media finally decided to ask some questions about his mental health and well-being. I guess they've been smacked in the face with it, and I suppose if they didn't ask any questions about it, they would simply confirm that they're a bunch of sycophants and propagandists and basically Democrat cult followers. So they asked some questions about it. But where they're really going apoplectic, I mean really going nuts, is over the decision by the Supreme Court in Trump versus U.S., where they declared that the president has certain levels of presidential immunity. That's been part of our presidential history. This is the first time perhaps it's been tested, but it has been part of our presidential history that the President of the United States, while serving in office, enjoys a certain level of immunity while in office and after leaving office. And the Supreme Court broke down the president's activities into three categories: his core constitutional responsibilities, for which he has absolute immunity, his presidential duties, for lack of a word, I forget the exact phrase they use, but his ordinary day-to-day duties that he might perform in the course of being president of the United States, for which he has presumptive immunity, meaning that it's not absolute. He can be challenged and perhaps prosecuted. And then his own personal private activities, for which there is no immunity. Perfectly reasonable, perfectly rational. But to show how far the cult has penetrated, I read you yesterday, Sotomayor. I mean, I almost cannot believe the things that she and those who were agreeing with her in the dissent were saying, because they're completely over the top. Now let's go back to it just to remind you. This is what Sotomayor said. Quote, when he uses his official powers in any way under the majority's reasoning, he will now be insulated from criminal prosecution. Orders the Navy SEALs Team 6 to assassinate a political rival. Immune. Organizes a military coup to hold on to power. Immune. Takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon. Immune. Immune, immune, immune. In every use of official power, that was the phrase, his official activities. I think that was the phrase they used, his official activities, his core constitutional responsibilities, his official activities, and then, of course, his private activities. She says, in every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law. Now, folks, that is a Supreme Court justice talking. And I said yesterday, I do not understand why conservatives are not issuing a hue and cry about this kind of incendiary language. Because again, what did I say yesterday? it is inviting people to kill President Trump because they're saying now he is a dictator. A king is a dictator. And the Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor just said Donald Trump is a dictator. I don't understand why people are not absolutely demanding that she apologize for that and that she retract those words, because it's fundamentally untrue. I mean, again, this out of these nutcases at the Marxist Socialist No Brains channel, sure, you expect that because they're dummies. And they don't know their head from a hole in the wall. And they're liable to say anything, any stupid thing. I mean, this lesbian that they have over there, Rachel Maddow. I mean, the woman she is a basket of moral and spiritual and intellectual confusion. So when something stupid comes out of her mouth, you just go, par for the course, sure. But Supreme Court justices are supposed to be above that kind of harsh, over-the-top political rhetoric. Donald Trump's not a king, and he's not above the law. All they really mean, and by the way, you know, if a case like this were brought in behalf of Joe Biden or Barack Obama, they'd be on the opposite side. Because, again, I want to hear them tell us how they feel about President Barack Obama assassinating this guy, Awlaki, an American citizen over in Yemen, Anwar al-Awlaki. He killed him, blew him up, and by the way, apparently killed a 16-year-old in the process, who I'm not mistaken was also an American citizen, as collateral damage. I think two innocent people, were killed in the process. And by the way, when that issue came up, even though I thought taking out Awlaki was the right thing to do, I said that is certainly a question that's worthy of some debate. He is, after all, an American citizen. And we ought to raise questions about that. Now, where I came down on, yeah, but he's made himself an enemy combatant, effectively, de facto, renounced his American citizenship. He is no longer under the protection of the Constitution as an American citizen. He is now an enemy combatant, and taking him out is an appropriate, a moral, and legal thing to do. That's where I came down on it. I sided with Obama, probably the only time in my life I ever did. But it was a reasonable and rational question to raise, right? It was a reasonable discussion to have. I mean, you don't want presidents running around taking out American citizens around the world who they may not like because they don't like their politics, they don't like what they're saying. But this man was not simply expressing anti-American rhetoric. This man was engaged in operations to kill Americans. That's an entirely different matter. But I don't hear anybody raising that against Obama. Do you? No. Oh, of course not. Because, see, if it were Obama, they'd be justifying it every which way. But because it's Donald Trump, oh, he's now a king. Well, I said, and I've said this before, this invites people to do violence to this president. This kind of rhetoric invites people to do violence to this president. So now this person is not really known to me. He may be known to some of you, but apparently this guy, Leah Delaria, used to be on Orange is the New Black. I've heard of that. I never watched that trash, but I've heard of it. I know what it is. Orange is the New Black. It was a popular TV show a few years back, right? I think it was on, I don't know what it was on. Was it on? I don't know. But at any rate, he was the star of that, so people who watched that would know him. He just came out then. Oh, no, I said him. It's a she, actress. I'm looking at the picture. Picture looks like a guy, but that shouldn't surprise us. So actress who played Bing Boo in Netflix Orange is the New Black called upon President Joe Biden to assassinate former President Donald Trump. Now, again, I don't think this was tongue-in-cheek rhetoric. I don't think this was a joke. I think these people are so deceived and so delusional that they actually think that a president now has been given authority by the Supreme Court to go out and assassinate anybody they want to, and that they're immune from prosecution from it because they're president. They actually, I think they actually believe that, which again, either it shows that they're either that stupid, and that's undoubtedly the case in many of these instances, or they're so thoroughly brainwashed by the cult they belong to that they simply can't see reality. Reality is beyond their ability to grasp. So he said, this is in his media post, shared to Instagram and to TikTok. He said, Joe, you're a reasonable man. Well, wait a minute now. Why does it say she here? Now it's saying she. Oh, yeah, that's right. It is a she. Okay. Joe, you're a reasonable man. You don't want to do this, but here's the reality. This is a blanking war. This is a war now, and we are fighting for our blanking country, and these blanks are going to take it away. They're going to take it away. Thank you, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Uncle Thomas. Joe, you now have the right to take that blank Trump out. Take him out, Joe. If he was Hitler and this was 1940, would you take him out? Well, he is Hitler, and this is 1940. Take him the blank out. Blow him up, or they'll blow us up. Facts. It's all-out war now. They will destroy us. They only want power, like all tyrants. Blank them. And if any of you blanks want to death threat me like you have been doing for my entire life, bring it on, blank. I'm Sicilian. I know how to play that game. Does it sound like a joke to you? It sounds to me like a direct call for the assassination of the President of the United States. And by the way, if you're saying to Joe Biden to do that, are you trying to communicate that to your fellow travelers? The Supreme Court did not give any president, not Donald Trump, not Joe Biden, nobody else in the future, the authority to assassinate anybody. Okay? He has not been given that authority. Now, combat situations are entirely different. But a president of the United States can't decide, you know what, that's a political enemy, I don't like them. Since I'm president of the United States, the Supreme Court said I have absolute immunity in my core constitutional responsibilities. Well, one of my core constitutional responsibilities is kill that person. I mean, folks, it is so utterly ridiculous and preposterous. I find it difficult to grasp that I'm actually responding to this stuff because people believe it. So here we go now. Here we go. Prominent actor, at least in the minds of some, I don't know this idiot, but prominent actor in the minds of some, literally calling for Trump to be murdered. And I've said this before, by the way. If you say that you compare him to Adolf Hitler, you compare him to Osama bin Laden, aren't you saying, in effect, he should be killed? I mean, aren't you? Because would anybody say killing Hitler would have been wrong? No, nobody would have. And has anybody said that killing Osama bin Laden was wrong? No, nobody has. So if Donald Trump is Adolf Hitler, if Donald Trump is Osama bin Laden, what's the next logical conclusion? Now, this guy, who I never heard of, by the way, says that, he's been getting death threats all along. I don't know from whom or for what. Now, I've gotten death threats, but I've never threatened anybody. And those of you who have watched me for a while or listened to me know I have repeatedly, characteristically, unequivocally denounced violence and have said again and again and again and again, we don't want to hurt anybody. We don't want to kill anybody. We don't want to harm anybody. We're interested in winning on the high ground of moral virtue. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing every thought under obedience to Jesus Christ. Not only that, I said I pray for Joe Biden. I don't want Joe Biden to get sick. I don't want Joe Biden to be harmed. I just want Joe Biden out of office. I want to see him voted out. I want to see him gone. Certainly don't want to see him quit while Kamala Harris is there, because I don't want Comrade Kamala with her finger on the nuclear trigger, because she's liable to laugh her way into pushing it. I mean, I just think the woman is really a dunce. I don't want somebody of that level of incompetence ruling over, presiding, forgive me, the word ruling is wrong, presiding over the free world. So, but in either case, the answer is not harming them, hurting them, not even wishing them ill in terms of their physical health. No. The answer is, in fact, I have a line in my letter that's going out today. The answer is not bullets and bombs, but ballots and votes. That's the answer. God cannot be glorified by inglorious means. I can't go to God and say, Lord, I love my country. I want the best for it. So I just decided, the best thing to do is just go out and kill somebody. Kill some of these people. That's not God. It's not Jesus. It's not love. It's not operating the power of God. It's operating strictly in the flesh. And the Bible says that though we live in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. That's the prelude to the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. They're not fleshly. They're not like that. But these leftists who write about me and comment on me, you would think I'm out there just trying to stoke the hatred and stoke the violence. I mean, I've also said repeatedly, we don't hate anybody. We don't hate people. Hate what they're doing to our country. Hate the lies they represent. Because the Bible says we're supposed to hate falsehood. That is a biblical commandment for Christians. We are supposed to hate lies and hate falsehood. And Jesus did. Remember what Jesus told those who were opposing him? He said, you are of your father the devil. The deeds of your father you will do. He was a liar from the beginning. The truth is not in it. He said when he speaks a lie, he speaks of his own. Because he's a liar and the father of lies. And basically, and you all are just like him. And that is absolute truth for the Democrat Party, the left. They're a cult of lies. And this is just another of the big lies that they're telling. Donald Trump's now a king. Oh, give me a break. You know what? If Donald Trump were a king, if Donald Trump somehow, some way, I can't think of a scenario that's stupid, but Donald Trump's now king. Well, I'm against him. If Donald Trump were a king, if Donald Trump were a dictator, if anybody were a dictator, I'd be against them. From people, it comes from God. It is his grant, his gift to us. And therefore, government's job is to secure that liberty, not take it away. And when you put all power in the hands of one person, you have in effect surrendered liberty. No conservative wants that. I don't know whether these people actually believe that we do, but I wouldn't put it past them because, again, they're delusional. And it would be laughable if it weren't so dangerous, just like what I just read you. It's so dangerous. And the fact of the matter is, they are the threat to our constitutional republic. They use the word democracy as a code word. What they really mean is mobocracy. What they really mean is the ability that they think they have to do what they want to do and impose it on the American people by hook, by crook, by whatever means necessary. By voting, having illegal aliens vote, by stuffing the ballot box, by collecting a whole lot of votes that people never cast, by using crooked voting machines, whatever they think they need to do. Because after all, having them in power is so important for the American people's well-being that they have to lie, steal, cheat, or even kill to get there. Let's not sweat the details. Because the utopia they're going to create for us is so great, so grand, that it's worth it. Or as is attributed to Mao, some say it was not Mao who said it, but Stalin. But if you want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. And he was talking about killing people. That was his euphemism for, if you want to create a revolutionary society, you got to kill a few million people. But again, let's not sweat the details. What's a little bloodshed for the utopian revolution we're going to create for the people? They're the ones. That's their tradition. That's their background. And they can't claim that the American legacy of liberty is their background because they rejected George Washington, they rejected Thomas Jefferson, they rejected James Madison because they're all a bunch of slaveholders and racists. And they rejected the Constitution. So what is their legacy? Their legacy is Mao and Marx and Lenin and Stalin and Castro. I mean, that's their real legacy. That's who they draw from. Those are the people they admire. They love these tyrants. We abhor them, and yet we're the ones who are trying to impose tyranny on the country. I mean, Lord have mercy on us. I mean, it's beyond the pale. It really is. Well, I wanted to reiterate that. So look, you and I are going to maintain our equanimity. We're going to maintain our calm. We're not going to engage in hysteria, but we're going to analyze things coolly, coldly, calmly, factually, logically, rooted and grounded in truth and reality, so that we can make wise decisions. Because we want the very best for our country, and what these idiots on the left don't understand is what we want is really best for them too. They just don't know it. Yeah, they don't understand it, but it's really best for them too. I say in my letter, which I'm planning to share with you, I say in my letter that there is no law and order, no peace, no quiet without truth. Because you see, without truth, without a foundation upon which everything rests, then there can be no true social cohesion, right? Because the only way you can convince people of lies is by force. Because what do lies do? Lies deny reality. And the only way you can convince people of lies is ultimately by force. Now, you can tell them lies over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until people just begin to believe those lies. But ultimately, there will always be people who say, no, that's not true. You got to send those people to the gulag. You got to send those people to the labor camps. You got to send those people to the torture chambers. You got to kill those people because they're in the way. Because the lies have a purpose. The purpose is to create this wonderful society. So when you don't have a foundation of truth, it leads to chaos and tyranny. And the left has thrown off all truth. We shouldn't be surprised that they believe this wild, crazy stuff because, again, they are a cult of lies. And we've seen now for the last generation how profoundly deceived people can become, and the things that they will do in the light of that deception, or maybe I should say in the darkness of that deception. That would be a more accurate way to say it. The things that they will do in the darkness of that deception, they astound us. I mean, imagine, the Heaven's Gate cult. Remember that? Where you had this guy, Applegate, convincing people that the comet passing by, I don't know whether that was Halley's or what it was, but the comet passing by was their vehicle to go to the next level. And that in order to get on the comet, you had to kill yourself. And that everybody needed to dress in these same jumpsuits and sneakers and drink this poison. And they were going to be transported to the mothership. And you and I kind of shake our heads and go, what? What? I mean, I don't mean to laugh at the tragedy of all those people dying, but that story, that you and I hear that and go, what? That doesn't make any sense at all. And yet, you had a whole group of people to whom it apparently made consummate sense. That's what cult-like thinking does. It so blinds people to reality, it so deceives them that they're willing to go along with the most horrendous things and think that they're doing something good. And I've talked about some of these things, and just kind of like, that's why I say the whole left, the whole Democrat Party is now a cult. Because look, think about this, folks. And I didn't intend to go here, but let me just spend a couple minutes on this. God has instilled in human beings an instinctual nature that propels us, compels us to defend our progeny, to protect them. In other words, to protect our babies, to protect our children. It's instinctive. But cult-like thinking and brainwashing can overwhelm that instinct to the point where not only do people no longer instinctively want to protect their progeny, but they are willing to discard them like trash. So when people convince a woman that the killing of her unborn baby is a thing to be celebrated and something for which she should be admired and lauded, that is a violation of the natural instinct that God put in us. But that's what cult-like thinking does. It makes you deny reality. It makes you deny what is what is natural, and do the supremely unnatural, the supremely abominable, and then want to be commended for it. And that's what the left and the Democrat Party has become. They want to take away children from a parent, and that's exactly where they're headed, even though I think this is the law only in California. There may be some other states as well, but make no mistake, this is where the thinking of the Democrat Party is. If you are a parent who says, I do not want my child mutilated, the day may come when they may change their minds about whatever sexual confusion they have, and I don't want them to make a decision from which they can never come back, that they can never reverse. I will leave it to them as an adult to decide what they have to be left as an adult to decide. But as a minor, I am not going to allow that. To have jurisdiction say, if you won't allow your child, your daughter, to have her breast cut off, if you won't allow your son to have his genitalia cut off, we will take the child from you and do it without you. That's cult-like thinking. I mean, imagine, you can imagine being a member of a cult and having somebody tell the cult member, now, we're a cult that believes gender is fluid, and now that your children are in this cult, you know, some of your children, the girls, may want to be boys, and we're going to make sure that they can do everything possible to become boys, and we're going to alter them and operate on them, and likewise the girls, and we want you to offer them up for that purpose. And having the parents say, oh, okay, that sounds wonderful. Oh, that is so gender affirming. And what is a complete lie? It's not gender affirming, it's gender denying. But they have you say, you are a great member of the cult. You are to be commended. I'm honored to offer up my children to sacrifice to the cult, to cut them up any way you want. Good for you. I have an award ceremony for you. And the parent who says, hey, I didn't understand when I was doing this, this is what this is involved, and I'm not doing this, say, oh, well, we're going to put you out of the cult, but we're going to keep your children. Yeah, you got to go because you don't get it. You don't have the revelation. But your child can stay. We'll take care of them. I mean, it's the same thing, folks. I mean, when I use this cult framework, I don't do it because I think it's disparaging to Democrats. I do it because I really believe that that is the best explanation for the absurdity, the utter, what? I mean, what's the best word for it? The utter insanity, really, of what they're doing, and commending each other for it. Because to me, that only happens, this kind of denial of reality, and by the way, an abuse of people, and that when they get to thank you for the abuse, you know, the Yahweh cult. This guy, remember the guy down in, I think it was down in, was he in Miami? Called himself Yahweh Ben Yahweh, black guy. Started this cult down there, and just like Jim Jones, the Democrats just loved him, and they took pictures with him. Look at all the wonderful things he's doing. If you made a single mistake, we're talking about adult men and women, he was actually beating people, brutally beating people for making mistakes. They had some kind of room, some kind of correction room where you would go in and get on your knees and they would whip you. And I mean whip you badly. Now you think a grown man being told by another man, I'm going to take you in this room and whip you, and you will get on your knees and take it? I'm going to look at you like you lost your mind. Or worse. That's what I mean. This stuff is tragic and it's terrible for the people who end up going through this stuff. But it just goes to show the power that people can exercise over folks when they brainwash them to accept anything. And that's what the Democrat Party has become. The Democrat Party has become a demonic cult. And sadly, they've got Christians captured in it too. They've gotten swept up in it. They say there were Christians who got swept up with David Koresh and Christians who got swept up with Jim Jones, thinking they were doing something noble and something good, and not to realize they were ultimately following the devil. But I guess you get deep enough into it, then you become psychologically committed and admitting that you're part of something that's evil, not good. And you watch these documentaries and people come out of this stuff, and one of the great things that the horrific things they experience is just a sense of personal guilt. how in the world did I allow myself to become so deceived? And they look back and they can't understand it. It's because the human mind is malleable, and when evil gets a hold of it and starts to twist it and turn it and pound on it and impact it, people can end up with their minds being warped so that their perception is warped. So that, in fact, good becomes evil and evil becomes good, and light becomes darkness and darkness light, and bitter becomes sweet and sweet bitter. And the people who put them through that, bring them through that process and brainwash them, those are the people who are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight, and probably quite proud of themselves that they can get people to deny the reality that's staring them in the face. We need to be praying for President Trump, praying for our country, and getting involved. You know what? In the last moments that I have, let me share with you this letter. I don't normally do this, but I think it's worth it. Kind of puts the cap on things for our Independence Day celebration. Here's what has not yet gone out. You are the first to hear it rather than read it. It says, as we celebrate our nation's 248th birthday, let us remind ourselves why Independence Day is so important. When the Declaration of Independence was officially adopted on the morning of July 4, 1776, it set in motion a series of actions that would result in our liberation from the dictates of a foreign king. Not all colonists believed we could defeat Great Britain, and not all wanted to. Our founding fathers pledged their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, overcame the doubts and division, and led the American people to victory over the world's greatest empire at that time. They recognized the danger of their bold decision, but they loved liberty more than life. The Liberty Bell in this inscription, proclaim liberty throughout the land unto all the inhabitants thereof, symbolizes what Independence Day meant in 1776 and what it should mean in 2024. Unfortunately, we live in an era when liberty is being perverted and its underpinnings are attacked. There is no true liberty without law and order, and there can be no law and order without truth. Jesus said in John 8:32, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. This is why violent criminals are released without bail. Smash and grab robberies are pled down to misdemeanors, and illegal alien gang members roam our streets committing rape and murder. Because every attempt to rule over other human beings without adherence to absolute truth results in chaos and tyranny. This is why Christianity stands alone as the foundation of human freedom. This is why our founding document declares that liberty is the gift of God. We are indeed endowed by our Creator with unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the right to pursue happiness. And this founding principle is why America has become the greatest place on earth to fulfill one's God-given potential. We share the same flaws as other human beings, and we have made our share of national mistakes. But our nation has been blessed beyond measure because we affirm the truths upon which freedom rests. Those who reject these truths are deceived to think that they can do better than God, who inspired our founding fathers and blessed our country. History proves that their path leads to human suffering rather than human flourishing. Our forefathers refused to submit to the royal demands of King George. We refuse to submit to the Marxist demands of the godless left. The colonists rejected tyranny then, and we reject it now and forever. We echo the cry of the patriots who stood against the British Empire: no king but Jesus, no sovereign but God. The left is constantly railing about threats to our democracy, which is their code word for the mobocracy they want to impose on us. We're a constitutional republic. The real threat to our way of life is not Donald Trump, but those who want to fundamentally transform our country into a collectivist tyranny governed by group identity rather than by individual liberty. Tribalism has never served mankind. It has served only the interests of those who seek to divide and conquer. We are in a pitched battle for the future of our country. But this war is waged, as I said earlier, with ballots and votes, not bullets and bombs. Thank God this is not a war fought on bloody battlefields. However, the stakes are just as high. And we must stay the course until we win, just as our veterans have from the moment the first battle for our liberty was joined. This November 5th, Election Day, will be a second Independence Day. We must again announce to the world that we love liberty. We want political leaders who adhere to the Constitution, defend our sovereignty, and uphold the rule of law. We want elected officials who believe in equality of opportunity rather than government-imposed equity. We reject the deep state siren song of moral and cultural relativism. We denounce so-called social justice as a Trojan horse of lawlessness, division, and depravity. Our America is a sweet land of individual liberty, a shining city on a hill, a people of virtue and valor, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Indeed, one nation under God. May God bless you and your family to be victorious over every challenge in life. And may he bless our nation to turn to him as the true source of unity, liberty, and prosperity. Have a wonderful July 4th. The best is yet to come. You know what? I think that's a fitting word on which to end it. The best is yet to come. I believe that with all of my heart. So you stand up, step up, speak up, and refuse to back up. Because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. Because we are on God's side. God bless everybody.